by Riverside FM.
It's lights out and away we go.
I'm Tyler.
And I'm CJ.
FM.
And this is F1 For Dummies. Formula One is essentially a 10-team, 20-driver, or next year, 11-team, 22-driver motorsport championship, where teams build their own cars using a set of regulations supplied by the governing body, also known as the FIA, which is French for something we don't understand.
It's a bunch of adult third graders driving really fast cars. That is effectively the gist of the drama and the events that happen in the sport.
Yep. Each car is built from the ground up by each team, and they can either build their own engine or purchase one from another manufacturer. The ones that do purchase are known as customer teams.
Yes, and those teams typically work together. And they occasionally share substitute drivers. So like when Stroll was injured recently, Valtteri Bottas was on the cards as a replacement driver for Aston Martin, as an example, working together.
Yes, there are 10 teams in the sport and 11 next year when Cadillac GM joins. The 10 teams are McLaren, who are number one in the constructors as of currently, Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari, Williams, Sauber, who will be Audi next year, Haas, which is the only American team on the grid until Cadillac joins, Alpine, which are French, and Aston Martin, and Racing Bulls, the Red Bull Junior team, which is weird. The teams compete. The season runs from March to December, hosting 24 races across 6 of the 7 continents. There is a competition for individual drivers and for teams. Points are scored by placing in the top 10s. It's 25 for first, 18 for second, 15 for third, 12 for fourth, 10 for fifth, 8 for sixth, 6 for seventh, 4 for eighth, 2 for ninth, and 1 for 10th.
Yes, and for the Constructors' Championship, the combined total of all of the drivers' results for the team get added together for the specific team's score, which is higher than the driver's score, almost always.
And so just to simply better race results, the more consistent you are, the more likely you are to win the championship.
Yes.
And now there can be such thing as reserve drivers, as when, for example, Lance Stroll missed the Spanish Grand Prix with an injury. If Aston Martin wasn't being Aston Martin, they would have had another driver fill in for Lance Stroll. If that driver were to score any points, he would have his own individual points total for the drivers, but his points would contribute to the Aston Martin points total as he was driving an Aston Martin. So you can see it's very simple. There are 24 races on the calendar. They tend to change year to year, so they're not really consistent. The most famous ones are probably the Monaco Grand Prix, which takes place on the streets of Monaco, and it's been around since before Formula One existed, which F1 was founded in
1950.
1950. It's the most famous. It's one of the triple crowns of motorsport, but it's not a good race because the current cars are too wide to pass around the streets of Monaco, so it's very boring. Monza, also known as the Temple of Speed in Italy, it's also been around for a long time. It's been on the calendar every year, the championship. If you ever play Mario Kart Wii, it looks exactly like Luigi Circuit. It's very old, very fast, and it's the home race of Ferrari, so that brings a lot of hype to the surrounding area. Since we are Americans, the 3 races in America are the Miami Grand Prix, which takes place at the beginning of the season. It takes place in the parking lot of Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, so it's a bad track. I mean, it's been the past few years just because of championship battles, but it's not a good track.
Yeah, the parking lot GP. There is always a risk of rain, so that's probably why it's pretty good. But I've also heard it described as the American Monaco,
Yeah.
pretty much because it exists because people like to party.
Yeah.
That is the sole reason why it exists.
The next American race takes place at Circuit of the Americas, or COTA. NASCAR also races there. That's in Austin, Texas. It's by far the best of the American races because it's a purpose-built circuit that F1's been racing on since 2012. So it produces the best racing, arguably, of the three. It's usually late October. And then there's the Las Vegas Grand Prix, which is unique as it literally takes place on the Strip. It's one of the biggest spectacles. Again, it's just a big party because F1 is only interested in American money, not American teams or drivers. But it looks like an upside-down pig, the track map, but it has produced some decent racing. But it usually takes place at anywhere from midnight to 10 o'clock, depending on your time zone. So you always have to watch it recorded.
Yes, if you're American. That's most of F1 races, unfortunately. Yeah. They all happen in the morning.
The ones we get to watch actually good are Canada of the Circuit Jules Villeneuve, which is my second favorite course behind Spa. The Circuit Jules Villeneuve is on an island, a man-made island in the middle of a river in Montreal, so it's pretty unique. We get Canada, we get Miami, we get Austin, we get the Mexico Grand Prix, which that is a semi-purpose-built, semi-street circuit in the middle in downtown Mexico City, which NASCAR is also racing on
this weekend.
This weekend too. So it'll be over by the time this episode drops. So whatever happened there, and then Sao Paulo, Interlagos in Brazil, which is formerly where the championship ended. It's by far one of the best courses on the calendar.
Yes, we also get Qatar if you book it after church. Some other modern classics on the calendar include Albert Park in Australia, which has returned to the season opening spot, as well as Japan, which isn't so much modern as Albert Park, but it's been on the calendar for quite a while, and it's hosted some epic championship battles, the most notable of which being 1989 with Senna being the site of the famous Senna versus Prost battle, which we will probably do an episode on that at some point. Stay tuned for that.
Spa is our favorite course.
Yes, Spa is an old-time classic. Also, not the original circuit is used today, but the location is one of the original 6 on the 1950 calendar. It's a beautiful track. The British Grand Prix is a fan favorite for the greatest commentator ever, David Croft, because he is from Britain. So it's naturally a big deal. My personal favorite circuit, Zandvoort in the Netherlands. I always look forward to that one. It was the site of the very first F1 race I ever watched. So that one always has a special attachment to me. Singapore and Marina Bay, the Marina Bay Street Circuit, has seen the first ever night race in F1, the home of Formula One night racing. Somehow that's an interesting race. Somehow that tends to produce some interesting races because the drivers actually crash.
Yeah, because before last year there was a 100% chance of a safety car.
Yes.
Even if it's George Russell on the last lap.
Yes, and of course there is Abu Dhabi, championship hoster. It's been the championship hosting location for the season finale location for over a decade now. It shows in some epic championship battles. Most of you viewers are probably most familiar with Max Verstappen versus Lewis Hamilton in 2021.
Yeah, Abu Dhabi.
If you know, you know.
Yeah. So that should cover most of the famous tracks. The other ones are either boring or they're all boring, so we don't mention them. A general race weekend looks like this. On Friday, there will be 2 practice sessions, FP1 and FP2. That's really just for teams testing how far they can run on the tires, adjusting setups, all the various things they would need to do on a weekend. On Saturday, there's FP3, the final practice session, which is usually where they do quality simulations and other last-minute stuff. Saturday afternoon is qualifying. The qualifying format, it's 18 minutes. The team says, 18 minutes to go out and set the fastest time they can. The 5 slowest are knocked out, and then we move into Q2. Again, everyone has a certain amount of time to set the fastest lap they can. The slowest 5 are knocked out, and then we move on to Q3, where the final 10 duke it out for pole position. Fastest time gets pole.
And second fastest gets second place, and so on.
They line up in rows of 2 all the way back to 20th on race day, and depending on the track, it could bend around the last corner.
Like at Silverstone for the British Grand Prix. But just a little bit. It's not a major disadvantage. And then they do F1 initiates the iconic standing start where 5 lights come on, and then they all simultaneously go off, and at that moment the cars are allowed to put the pedal to the metal, and it's a mad dash towards turn 1, which is usually the first braking zone. And for the vast majority of F1 races, it is the most exciting part of the race.
Yeah, well,
But as a special Formula One race, if the race start is not the most exciting part of the race. So that's always a very important moment in any F1.
Lap 1 is purely exciting because it's where crashes are most likely to happen. I sound like a bit of a masochist there. But it's true because everyone's fighting to grab positions or something. They're all in a big clump instead of a nice line. So everyone's fighting to stick out, and you can see a driver taking outside lines for like 6 or 7 corners before they finally slide in and get going.
Yes, it's also the time where all the drivers are all right next to all right there with each other, able to pass. So it could make or break your race depending on how well your race start is.
Yes, as Landon Norris knows all too well. Each team, then the main bit of strategy comes from to win the race, you're going to need the fastest car, which that comes through development and stuff. But what makes the races interesting are the strategy. Each team is given a certain set of 3 different compounds of tires. The hard, which is the slowest but longest lasting, medium, which is a balance, and soft, which degrades the fastest, but you can set the fastest times on there. So teams normally use softs in qualifying. You are required by the rules to use 2 different compounds of tire in a race. So that means a minimum of at least 1 pit stop. And pit stops make you lose anywhere from 20 to 30 seconds depending on the track. So
Yes.
It's all about managing your tires, coming in at the right time, so you're not having to get stuck behind any lapped cars. It's all about the tires.
Yes. And when we say that the hard is the slowest but the longest lasting, it is subjective to the conditions and the track and the specific compound that Pirelli, the tire producer for Formula One, provides. But generally that is the case. However, there are cases where the hard tire is the best tire because it is capable of setting lap times as fast as the mediums because of the fact that the mediums degrade at such a rate. But
Yes.
so if you're really into strategy, you can pay attention to that when you watch an F1 race.
And strategy is very, very simple. As you watch races, you'll pick up on it within the first 2 and 3. The 2 terms you'll hear often are overcut and undercut. Undercutting is pitting before your opponent or the person you're trying to pass, getting on a set of new tires, setting a really fast, what's known as an out lap, which is just your lap after coming out of the pits, so that by the time they come into the pits, you've made up enough time to get past them. And
Overcutting is effectively the opposite, staying out in the hopes that your opponent does not undercut you, and then hopefully you'll be able to have a tire advantage and pull away from your opponent even further. Because generally newer tires are better than older tires because they'll be degraded more.
Yes.
And they'll be faster.
Strategy is difficult to explain. If you watch a race, you'll start to pick up on it. And so that F1 it's pretty simple. That basically wraps up all what a race looks like. If there's a crash, that'll bring out a yellow flag.
It can come in the form of just a track speed limit set in a certain area of the track. That's called a double waved yellow. And that means the cars cannot overtake and they have to be prepared to stop in a certain section of track. If the crash is bad enough, then the FIA race control can throw a virtual safety car or a VSC, and that will slow the field down, and they all have to set the same lap times so that effectively the whole group stays the same distance apart for the duration of the safety car period, which is why it's a virtual safety car. And then there is a full safety car, which usually comes out for the worst crashes. You'll see this more on street circuits probably. But that's when there is a physical car with flashing yellow lights that leads the field around the track for a period of time until the crash is all cleaned up and the entire field gets bumped together and then there will be a safety car restart where the leader gets to decide when to go once the flashing yellow light car leaves all the cars go. And they all get bunched together again, which is really exciting.
In very severe cases, i.e. if a driver is injured or the barriers are damaged, they will red flag it. which I think the FIA regulations state that if the cars cannot safely navigate the circuit behind the safety car, the session will be red flagged, which is everyone is stopped, all cars come into the pits, no one's on the track, and they clean up all the debris on the track, and then that will get you a full restart, like back, lights out all over again. They can also change tires, which will count as they're using two different compounds of tires, so that's what happened in Monaco 2024.
Yes, red flags are boom or bust. In some cases, it makes potentially exciting races incredibly boring. In some cases, it makes potentially boring races incredibly exciting. So it's all situational. Yeah, that covers it for flags.
That's it for everything you'll see on a race day. And now we'll just give you a little something about each of the teams and each of the drivers, so that if you were to pop up in the next race, then you could kind of know what's going on. We'll start with the current championship leaders and our favorite team, McLaren. McLaren's whole racing operation is headed by a dude called Zach Brown. He's kind of overweight, but he's really, really funny because he likes to trash talk.
He's also American. He's the one American F1 actually likes.
So, like, if you're watching the broadcast, he also likes to talk to David Croft, one of the commentators. So you'll hear his voice every now and then. McLaren is based in Woking, UK, and was founded by former F1 racer Bruce McLaren, who is actually a Kiwi. They are the team in orange. Then their logo looks like a little bit of a Nike swoosh. They have a lot of young fans, and they are currently the fastest car on the grid.
Yes, and that orange color is officially known as papaya. So the McLaren is also commonly referred to as the papaya as well.
There are two drivers, Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris, our two favorite drivers. Mine's Oscar's, CJ's is Lando. Oscar is basically known for being the chillest guy on the paddock. He will make the same facial expression whether he wins or he DNFs.
And he's the one guy who doesn't act like a third grader in the whole field.
He's just chill, and he performs consistently. Like, you can count on him to do good. Lando is a bit of a wild card. He tends to run his mouth a little bit. And he's also been nicknamed the bottler, as he tends to if he gets on pole, he tends to mess it up.
And then there is Ferrari with the drivers Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton. Ferrari is the oldest team on the grid, the only team to participate in every single championship. They're currently second in the standings somehow. And they have, since their debut in Formula One, they've had 249 wins, 253 pole positions, and 263 fastest laps, and 16 constructor championships. They are one of two teams based in Italy, Mello, Italy. Their chief is Frédéric Vasseur, who is probably the chillest team chief, because he's just kind of always, he's always like perpetually scowling. I don't know why, but yeah. There's Charles Leclerc, who is widely known as the hottest F1 driver on the grid.
Carlos Sainz.
That is debatable. Carlos Sainz is a former Ferrari driver who was replaced by Lewis Hamilton, the seven-time world championship,
right,
undebatably. Yes. What were you saying?
Team LH, it's 7 times.
Yes, it is 7 times. If you are a Lewis Hamilton fan, do not spam the comments with he is an 8-time world championship. Next week, the week after this episode debuts, we will talk about why that is not the case and why it should be the case. We will talk about why his 8th world championship is not reality, and why he only has 7. But he does have 7 world championships, which is a tie for the most world championships in Formula One history with the great Michael Schumacher. Lewis Hamilton also has, by head and shoulders, the most wins of all time in Formula One, which is why I do have to say he is the GOAT, even though he's not driving like a GOAT right now, because he just perpetually bottles. If Lando Norris wasn't the bottler, then it would be Lewis Hamilton, because Lewis Hamilton is always underperforming with the machinery that he has. Almost always, especially in qualifying.